The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
It cannot be underestimated the damage that you have caused to the citizens of Pike County, to law enforcement who every day get up, face the same sort of stresses that you do.
This whole case was fishy, and I have no idea how they. You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to amend
I'm granting.
I'm
rescinding the sentence.
Sometimes, law enforcement officers fall on the wrong side of justice. They can be anything from corrupt to pure evil, using their position of power to commit unspeakable atrocities. But justice often prevails, and it doesn't look kindly on these kinds of officers. Let's explore some of the most evil law enforcement officers who thought they could get away with crimes but got caught. Zachery Wester. This case takes us to Jackson County, Florida. The trial of Zachery Wester, a former sheriff's deputy, was a lengthy one. He was charged with 67 counts of racketeering, fabricating evidence, false imprisonment, and possession of controlled substances. Wester was accused of planting drugs in a dozen vehicles during random traffic stops.
A substance that appears to be an illegal narcotic. Do you know anything about that?
I do not.
As a law enforcement officer watching this video, you might think, of course, anyone would deny having such a substance in their car. But these poor people were innocent. They went to prison because of one man's demented agenda. As the arrests kept flooding in and the deputy's name kept popping up, the sheriff's office became suspicious. In 2018, Wester was suspended. 3 years later, his case went to trial, but he pleaded not guilty to all charges.
This is a case about an abuse of an incredible power, about the abuse of the incredible trust that we all put, and we have to put, in law enforcement in a society.
The prosecution relied on the defendant's own body cam footage to help argue their case. The only downside in being a corrupt officer, you could say. Stephen Van, a convicted felon, had recently gotten out of jail when Wester supposedly found methamphetamine in his car.
Have you ever seen this before? I'm just trying to figure out how that stuff got in your car. You're gonna go to jail today for possession of methamphetamine, okay?
Oh man, dude, I'm serious, dude. Anything, what you want me to do, man?
Imagine the desperation Stephen felt when he thought he would go to jail again right after being released, for a crime he never committed. Several people testified against Wester. All of them had gone through the same horror show. All of these people gave the deputy permission to search their car, as all of them thought there was nothing to hide in the car. They had no idea Wester had planted evidence, so he could have them arrested.
And I knew my truck was clean. I knew it was.
While the jury got to watch most of the traffic stops, some recordings had mysteriously disappeared. Of course, any judge knows that a corrupt officer will work hard to delete evidence against them, so he confronted Wester in the courtroom.
Why in the world would that have been deleted? I wish I knew that answer.
Yeah, right. At this point, Wester still thought he could use his power to escape justice, but when the last witness took the stand, the walls began closing in on Wester. Teresa Odom revealed her own outrageous incident with the corrupt deputy, and Wester's body cam stood as proof of it.
Hi, how are you?
At first, the officer was polite, even joking around with Teresa.
Anything the vehicle need to be concerned about? Bombs, hand grenades, rocket launchers? Okay.
Teresa let Wester search her vehicle and stepped away from her truck. This was the perfect timing for Wester to plant evidence. Look at this moment where he prepares to put his gloves on. You can see a small object in his left hand. Seconds later, he places this small bag next to a spoon in Teresa's truck. It's shocking to think he was doing these things to innocent people, and he was so audacious, he didn't even care he had a body cam on him.
Ms. Odom.
It is yogurt, sir.
I know. Okay.
It's yogurt.
How about this, though?
That is not mine. No, sir.
Thankfully, Teresa got to testify against this monster in court.
The white small plastic baggie that was in that spoon that the deputy just showed you on this video, had you ever seen that before?
No, sir.
Was that in your car?
No, sir.
The prosecution argued that Wester had high ambitions to move into narcotics. He was only 28 years old and he wanted to prove himself fast. If he made several narc arrests, perhaps he could argue for being transferred to his favorite unit. Wester testified he never planted any drugs.
The drugs were there. I did not put the narcotics there.
After 5 days and several witnesses, the jury was asked to render a verdict. If Wester was found guilty on all charges, he could spend the rest of his life behind bars. After 7 hours, the jury returned with its verdict.
State of Florida versus Zachery Wester, we the jury find as follows as to the counts charged and the information.
Count 1, guilty of racketeering as charged.
The clerk went on to read the verdicts on all 67 charges.
Count 7, guilty of official misconduct as charged.
In total, Wester was found guilty on 19 charges, including misconduct in the arrests of Stephen Van and Teresa Odom. 11 of the 12 drivers filed civil lawsuits against Wester. In July 2021, he was sentenced to 12.5 years in a state prison. Todd P. This next case happened in Breckinridge County, Kentucky. Todd P surprised many people when he appeared on the wrong side of the courtroom. He was once the sheriff of Breckinridge County. Now he was charged with assault, operating under the influence, criminal mischief, and leaving the scene of an accident. Initially, P pled not guilty, but shortly after, he appeared in court to change his plea to guilty. This allowed him to serve just 75 days in jail versus a possible 15 years if he went to trial and was found guilty of all charges. P agreed to change his plea in writing. Then he faced Judge Janet Crocker.
This time, is it your desire to change your plea from not guilty to guilty?
Do I have to answer that yes or no, or can I make somewhat of a statement that's
that is a yes or no answer, sir.
P still didn't have an answer, though.
Will I have the opportunity to say anything further?
If it is your intention to change your plea from not guilty to guilty, certainly you'll have an opportunity to make any statement. But if it is not your intent to enter a guilty plea at this time, then I'm going to set your case for jury trial, and you're going to stop wasting my time and everybody else's time this afternoon.
Things got heated pretty fast.
Ma'am, I'm not trying to waste your time.
And then is it your intention to enter a guilty plea at this time or not, sir?
No. Why am I wasting your time,
Mr. Chambers?
The judge ignores the question and checks in with the prosecution.
Why am I wasting your time,
Mr. Chambers, what is the Commonwealth's position at this time, sir?
Your Honor, we would move to revoke the defendant's bond at this time.
The judge orders a brief recess, perhaps hoping Pate's attorney can remind him he's already agreed to plead guilty. But back in court, it gets just as strange.
Let's get back on the record and see if we can sort this out. At this point in time, what is Mr. Pate's decision with respect to his guilty pleas?
So I believe I'll just let him answer that question if it pleases the court.
All right. So, Mr. Pate?
Can I say a few things, or?
I need to understand what it is that we're doing here today, Mr. Pate.
Yes, I had every intention of coming in here today and entering a guilty plea. It's difficult for me to enter a guilty plea for a lot of reasons, and I don't want this court to think that I am trying to minimize any responsibility that I had in this situation that occurred.
Pate's problem, in short, was he did not agree with the assault charge. He believed the prosecutor only added it because of Pate's position as sheriff and because Pete rejected an earlier plea deal, almost as if this was some kind of petty revenge work from the prosecutor.
I feel like I'm being very much bullied into doing something that's not right, and I want this court to know that Todd Pate holds himself responsible for everything that he did. It's hard for me to lay down and plead to felony charges that don't apply.
But as Patey held his ground, so did the judge.
Is it your intention today to enter this guilty plea?
And if I could address...
This is either a yes or no. Are you going to enter your plea or not?
Everybody thinks it's funny. Let me just plea and get it over with for everybody. Plea to something that I absolutely do not feel good about, but I don't want you to try to send me to the penitentiary for years and years. If you can sleep with it, I can sleep with it.
Even Pate's attorney put his face in his hands. Clearly, Pate was the only one not understanding what he was there to do that day, or he wanted too much attention that he disregarded the judge's instructions a dozen times in a row. Finally, the judge was fed up.
I think we're done. At this point in time, I think we're done. Where I think we are today is that on the one hand, the Commonwealth can enforce the terms of this agreement based on the execution.
She even told Pate off for ignoring her statement.
Mr. Pate, I'm talking at this point in time.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
At this point in time, I'm going to sustain the Commonwealth's motion to revoke his bond. He will be taken into the custody and housed in the Breckinridge County Jail.
Pate continued to talk back even when the judge told him she was done ruling and he could go. He eventually pled guilty and accepted the terms of his sentence, 75 days in county jail with credit for time served. Jenny Kelly. Now let's talk about the outrageous case of Jenny Kelly. In San Luis Obispo, California, things heated up in the courtroom, funnily enough, during recess. On the one side, there was Timothy McGill, whose client, a state hospital employee, was suing for wrongful termination. On the other end of the table is the state's second highest-ranking legal officer, Deputy Attorney General Jenny Mariah Kelly. Moments earlier, during the cross-examination of a state witness, McGill asked the witness if she had met Kelly earlier in the day, prior to testimony. This particular question, an effort to potentially cast doubt on the witness's credibility, angered Kelly, and now she was letting everyone know. Her gestures are pretty clear. Her behavior got so aggressive that bailiff Tyler Brooks approached Kelly and told her to stop shouting. Then he asked her to leave the courtroom, but based on Kelly's body language, it appears she's not interested in going. It's definitely strange to watch a deputy attorney general about to be escorted out of court, but it did not end there. Yep, it got physical, and Kelly was the one who started it. According to the sheriff's report, after Kelly refused to lower her voice or leave the courtroom, the bailiff grabbed her hands to escort her out. But when she pulled away, the bailiff wrestled her to the floor as Kelly's co-counsel looked on in disbelief. Other deputies soon made their way to the scene and helped handcuff Kelly as she continued to resist. Finally, Kelly was escorted out of the courtroom and urged to calm down. She was charged with resisting a peace officer. Later on, she pleaded no contest and pled guilty to disturbing the peace instead. Kelly was also ordered to pay a $1,000 fine and complete an anger management class. Charlie Reeder. Our next case takes place in Waverly, Ohio, at the Pike County Courthouse. The defendant, Charlie Reeder, used to be the Pike County Sheriff. Now, he was being charged with theft in office and tampering with evidence. The veteran lawman allegedly stole roughly $5,000, which had been confiscated in other cases. He appears before Judge Patricia Cosgrove.
So this time we'll proceed with sentencing.
Reeder was looking at a maximum sentence of 8 years in prison, but he wanted to do all he could to avoid that sentence, so he pleaded with the judge.
I stand here before you today to take accountability for my actions. As a sheriff of Ohio, I shed, excuse me, I shed bad light on the office of sheriff. For this, I am terribly sorry. If I could go back and change it, I would 1,000,000 times.
Reeder got so tearful that someone offered him tissues.
For this is not who I am. I have, and I now pray that the court will find mercy on me.
Reeder asked for community service, the lowest sentence he could receive.
I am a good person who made bad decisions and choices.
After expressing remorse for his crimes, Reeder begs the judge to consider the impact a prison sentence would have on his family.
I'm asking all this so that I have the opportunity to watch my son graduate from high school. My daughter, who's getting married in October.
He also stated that he wanted to be a good husband, better than he'd been in the last 25 years due to his career. When he's finished, the judge has one thing to ask the defendant.
The big question I have, and is on everyone's mind, I'm assuming, is, I guess, why did you take the money?
I took the money, and mind you, this does not excuse it, but from drug dealers that took it from parents of very poor people in this county.
According to Reeder, he spent much of that money to support charities in the community, but there's also evidence he built up a sizable gambling debt. And hey, even if you take from dealers to give to the poor, that doesn't make you Robin Hood. That was not his money to take. The judge let him know how she felt about his actions.
You've been in law enforcement for 24 years. We all choose our profession, and we have to conduct ourselves with integrity so that everyone trusts us. It cannot be underestimated the damage that you have caused to the citizens of Pike County, to law enforcement who every day get up, face the same sort of stresses that you do.
Charlie Reeder was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison, but because his sentences ran concurrently, he only had to spend 3 years behind bars. He is also barred from holding public office in Ohio and no longer serves as a peace officer now. Lisette Gonzalez. Our last case took place at the Seminole County Circuit Court in Sanford, Florida. It's 6:30 p.m. and a long one-day trial has come to an end.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of driving under the influence.
The defendant is 46-year-old Lisette Gonzalez. But here's the thing. Even though her DUI charge already got a verdict, Lisette's attorney made a final plea to the judge.
Your Honor, not enough evidence presented for the jury to find the verdicts that they did. They didn't do all the field sobriety examinations that should have been done.
During the trial, it was revealed that Gonzalez was never given a breathalyzer or had her blood drawn, and yet arresting officer Michael Wagner recorded that she tested above the legal limit of 0.8. In his official report, Wagner claimed it was an honest mistake, but observed what he believed to be intoxication.
I respectfully ask that this court grant the judgment notwithstanding the verdict.
The attorney is asking the judge to use his power to overturn the jury's verdict and acquit Lisette. It's a move rarely seen in the courtroom, but the judge entertained the attorney.
All right. This isn't a purely circumstantial case. And so I'm going to deny the motion for JOA.
JOA means judgment of acquittal. In short, this means evidence at trial was insufficient for a conviction. Now, it looks like the case is closed, but Judge Fred Schott has other business with Gonzalez.
Now, we have this other case for driving while license suspended.
Indeed, just 2 months before her DUI arrest, Lisette was ticketed for driving with a suspended license. However, there was a loophole here. The only reason her license was suspended was because of the inaccurate paperwork filed by Officer Wagner.
I want to be enlightened.
It was a mistake, admittedly, by Michael Wagner.
I know.
He testified to that today.
He caused her to have her driver's license suspended for at least a few months for nothing.
The judge is addressing prosecutor Diana Mears, not the defendant.
Perhaps you can get mad at me, Your Honor, but at this point...
Wait a minute. Did you hear the uncontroverted testimony of this officer?
Your Honor.
Then I want you to take him up on perjury.
Your Honor.
Will you take him up for perjury?
He admitted it was a mistake, Your Honor.
No, but he lied. He lied on a sworn
Absolutely
citation.
not, Your Honor, and that is not true.
I'm dismissing. I am dismissing this charge.
Even after dismissing the case, Judge Schott was not done with the prosecutor.
This whole case was fishy, and I have no idea how they... You know what?
Their address on file.
You know what?
The state intends to amend
I'm granting.
and proceed on
I'm rescinding the sentence.
Judge Schott reverted his decision and acquitted Lisette Gonzalez on the spot. He was angered at the mistakes made by the prosecutor. He claimed that Officer Wagner went against several laws to arrest Lisette, and he saw this as personal and based on no real probable cause or evidence. The prosecutor still wanted to have the last word.
And you're not going to provide a written order on that?
Nope. You want to feel me? Feel me.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Lisette walked out of the courtroom that day, protected from a corrupt officer who wanted very badly to arrest her. Thankfully, in some cases, justice does prevail. Hey, thanks for watching. Leave a comment and remember to like and subscribe. See you next time.